All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to BetSperts Golf. Here for, while we have live golf, but we're also here for the 2024 API, the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill, while we sweat the end of the Cognizant Classic here. Joining me as always, PGA Splits 101, Ron Kloss. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, doing well. I've got a recording right now, so I haven't seen anything yet this morning. So I'm sure when I play it, I'll wake up to or I'll see Shane Lowry, just doing what he does sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, moving on to PJ National here. So Bay Hill, very similar course to PJ National. In fact, really tough ball striking course. So yeah, got another really small field and a signature event. So interesting to see how another one of these plays out.
Ron and I both had pre-tournament outrights on Lowry, and obviously you feel pretty good when David Skins is involved late. And again, this is probably one of the better courses for, like, as we said last week in the show, live ads, late ads, all those things, because of the nature of the course, volatility of the course, the water, and all that this can bring. Austin Eckroat is a guy that I was the window on Austin Eckroat relentlessly late last summer, and to maybe have that ticked off by Eckroat here. We'll see. I mean, Van Rooyen went absolutely berserk before things got shut down on Sunday. Minwoo Lee is out there doing Minwoo Lee things right now, which is very interesting. Eckroat is kind of cruising as we record now. But yeah, Lowry's not dead. Lowry's not doing well. So we'll hold on hope and then move on to API. Yeah, as Ron said there, as we kind of have here, we have these signature events this year, which are bringing in small fields. This is a 69-man field. We do have a cut, which is interesting. It's similar to what we had a couple of weeks back over at Riv at the Genesis. We have 69 top 50 and ties make the weekend, and then it's also with players within 10 strokes. So theoretically, we have a cut. We might not have many. I think we had more than maybe expected at the Genesis, but again, this is I think a little bit more of a daunting task. It is like what we thought old PGA National was, maybe on steroids a little bit. There's a lot of water in play, not as many holes, but there's danger in a lot of spots. We've had some pretty strong course history here, Ron. We've also had some guys that have flirted with the top of the board that end up kind of breaking in here a little bit too. So I guess kind of talk to me about Bay Hill and what we need to be looking at this week.
Yeah, so it's a classical Florida style golf course characterized, by length. Bermuda grass, all Bermuda everywhere, thick rough. And actually, I think going back, yeah, this, sometimes I get confused with all the different rough surfaces, but this is pure Bermuda rough. And yeah, so you typically firm and fast greens, but again, we thought it was going to be pretty firm here at PGA National. Obviously, the rain had a lot to do with how soft it is and how much, scoring is down. But yeah, it's another course where you got a lot of bunkers, water hazards, windy conditions typically do play a factor here. 5 of the last 6 winners have finished 12 under or worse. And yeah, similar to kind of the last 2 events, Riviera, PGA National, par is pretty much an acceptable score. And obviously I say that, PGA National did not play like that this week for the most part. But it's another ball striking test, 3rd most difficult to gain on approach. It's the 5th most difficult course to gain off the tee. And so, yeah, typically, plays like a major. So Justin Rose, I was just reading this quote before we came on, and he kind of summed it up pretty good. He said, "There's no way to fake it around Bay Hill. The rough's pretty thick. The greens are quite firm, which require pinpoint iron shots. There's enough trouble out there that mentally it's a challenge. You have to commit to your shots." So yeah, getting as we approach the Masters here, this will be a good kind of test to kind of see where everyone's at kind of here, in March.
Yeah. Next 2, right? We get API and players on deck, which is I think a great test. You have some notes on your preview, which should be coming up on the site shortly, around some of the changes, some of the specific course changes that have been done in the last handful of years. I think there's a major reno, I would say 18 or 19, that I think changed some things in terms of new guy in charge of the layout and stuff. That's changed stuff. So be cautious going too far back in terms of some course history. And you've had the rough grown out a little bit, and then you've had some different shaved runoffs around hazards that have made it easier to roll into the water, roll into a bunker, But I know that, like, I make a good point too with like Rory complaining about what's going on with the rough around the greens too. You don't have the shaved runoffs as much anymore. That's something you could look at in the rabbit hole around, like, rough length around the green being longer versus shorter stuff. How does that kind of play into handicapping this week?
Yeah, so Bay Hill used to have, really these really tight light areas around the greens, and players would hate it. And now the rough's more grown out. It's taken the place of it's more grown out around the areas where it used to be, really short. And so, yeah, I think it just depends on which players are, better, chipping from rough. And, when you look at around the green here, scrambling from the rough is the third most difficult on tour now. So it kind of used to be flip flopped. It used to be really difficult from the short grass, but they made this change a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, my article gets into kind of those changes and how it affected last year. And so even a guy like Victor Hovland, you can see this, his first 3 trips here, he was like 40th, 49th, 42nd, because he always tended to do a little better and thicker rough around the greens. And so you look the last 2 years, he's been second and he's been 10th. So, who knows if that's, coincidental or whatnot, but I think it does, especially on the rabbit hole where you could look at scrambling from the rough and look at that from a difficult filter.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point because, again, as you mentioned, firm and fast greens, harder to hold. Some of these are, longer approach buckets in terms of like where we're coming from this week. Is a lot of 200 plus and some longer stuff. So those are obviously by nature harder to hold the green in that. So you are going to have to scramble a little bit here for sure on these fast Bermuda greens. So definitely going to be interesting to take a look at. Let's look at the opening odds board here with our friends over on FanDuel. You have some books are out. Some books are a little slow to deliver based off of, look what's going on. Still, we have golf still going on, as we said at the Cognizant there at PGA National with us, Scotty and Rory at the top, which makes sense. And as you got into here, course history for the both, fairly strong, which makes a ton of sense. Rory in particular has been really strong here over the years. Hovland at 12, Xander here at 14, Cantley 16. Ludwig actually played here last year in this event, T24. He is opened at 20. Spieth with, again, you get in a spot where strokes in around the green matters. Some of the stuff that Jordan can pull off around the green. Interesting little run here last year. He's at 20. Morikawa at 20, Bermuda Burns on 22, JT at 22, Max at 22. Then you get a little teardrop as you get into Tommy, Zal, and Fitz, who's also had a pretty nice little career here as well, knocking on the door. So again, we get into the spot where 69 people, basically a minimal no cut event type of stuff. Like this is where we're at in the landscape of golf outright betting in 2024 with where we're at. You got to pay the piper at the top of the board somewhere probably. I think I might tail something that I saw. I think you had some success with a couple weeks ago. Maybe just kind of wait early and see how the board shakes out, see what happens in terms of, who's getting bet on, and see if there's anyone can drift a little bit. Because these are fairly short. I think some of the best early Monday action might be down the board. But yeah, this is again, this is kind of where we're at. We're having to pay basically 25 and shorter for about 15 to 20 guys, which is a little bit tough. So any initial takeaways at the top?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the books events like this, they like to throw everybody together and just kind of see, who bites on who. And so I think weeks like this, I used to jump early, but like when you have so many guys, like, I mean, it's like what, 10, 12 guys bunched up and, between up to 22, I think it's smarter just to kind of see where it all plays out as we go on here, the next day or so. And yeah, just interesting because, it was a signature event last year. So you had 120 golfers. So still a pretty huge difference, like 50 more golfers. But then, we had Kurt Kitayama at 200 to 1, kind of come out of nowhere. And, it was only 9 under last year. So another tough event. But pretty much, we're seeing, at least in the recent years, going back to Rory and then, Turtle Hatton, Bryson, Scotty. So we've had pretty strong favorites, being in control here recently.
Yeah. And then, like I said, a lot of guys that have had success where they got into the top 15, top 20 or so, and then eventually close. So that's also something to just looking at. It's probably a little bit more course history sticky than some other events. So definitely worth taking a look at. I want to jump into the rabbit hole. real quick and you'll play around with some of the unique abilities to model some of the statistics here this week. If you're not familiar, check that out. If you want to get access to what we're doing at BetSports Golf, you want Ron's preview article, you want to get in our Discord, get all the picks from our staff, read everything that we do on the site, all the tools, everything. A really cheap way. We've partnered with our friends at Vivid Picks. It's a DFS pick'em site where you can, they've kind of expanded the offering too, similar to some other ones out there, Underdog, Prize Picks like that. Vivid Picks is allowing you to get access to BetSports Golf for just $5. Minimum $5 deposit and play on Vivid Picks. You get everything that we're doing over at BetSports Golf for the rest of the 2024 season. They will first deposit match up to $250, which is great too. So if you like these sites, this is the best in the industry. You can use our promo code BetSports Golf, or you can find this article on the site, click into it for free. It is just the best way to access it. If you don't have Vivid in your state, it's only available in 28 states. DM us individually on Twitter or at BetSports Golf, and we will give you the promo code that we have available for you right now to take advantage of it. Obviously, this is an affiliate deal. I can't get you a $5 subscription, but we are being pretty aggressive. We are already the cheapest in the industry. Too cheap. It's actually going to go up very soon. So you want to lock in some of these prices as soon as you can. But you can reach out to us directly at BetSports Golf. All right, Ron, let's play around. And again, I think this is a spot where we have some unique stuff. We played around last week with some strokes gained Florida specific stuff, strokes gained high water damage. Some of the things I thought were, pretty unique. Less than driver was something we played with last week too. You can see here defaulting to, just looking at the last 12 months, strokes gained total. This is the top of the board. And these are the guys that we're all looking at that are single digits or, sub 20 in the outright board. What are some unique ways we could look into chopping up some data this week that could maybe lead us into a good spot?
Well, just going back to what you said a few minutes ago. So yeah, the course history here is the fourth most predictive on tour. So, one thing that you can do real easy is, just go to the courses and select Bay Hill, take it all the way back to, 2016. And, that's one way to look at one of the tweets I posted yesterday, just showing some of that early course history. But yeah, so you can get into definitely strokes gained Florida, when you have our region feature. Another way you could do that, if there have been different courses played, throughout the season over the years on Florida. But if you just want to narrow down a different way to just the Florida swing, which we're in right now, you have these four courses that, get played every year. You can look at that in the event season for the filter. So that's something, I'll definitely be doing this whole time period that we're in. And then just, two good ones again, going back to last week, even though the conditions ended up not being difficult, at PGA National, I think this week, very difficult conditions is a good filter, along with, very strong field strength. So those two are going to be important this week. And there's a few more we'll get into here, but I'll let you get into these.
I like it. So I'll go with the Florida event season one that you suggested here, just looking at the top of the board. You're getting a pretty decent sample for these guys. And again, I'm backed out over the last 3 years. You can obviously go back to 5 if you would like, but we're getting, 28, 30 rounds for most of the field here, which I think is a good enough story to be told. Interesting. Justin Thomas looks like he's doing his best Scotty Scheffler impersonation here, struggling on the greens, but Tita Green has been pretty immaculate. But your top 10 here is JT, Victor Hovland, Keegan Bradley, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Chris Kirk, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Jordan Spieth, which makes a ton of sense. Let's just throw this in here. We'll throw it in to build a model just to show some folks. We'll go event season Florida. You don't have to put anything in here if you're building a model or watching this for the first time. This is something for yourself to make a note. All you need to do is just hit that add button and add it to your model or your mixed condition model. It'll be in here when we click this green button at the top. So we're just kind of banking things for now. You can see I have a condition. This little red dot denotes that I have this here. But again, you want to make sure you turn that filter off before you start to slice and dice the rest of the data, because you'll start to get yourself into a very, very narrow sample size. But what else do you want to do? You want to do some stuff around scoring conditions being difficult, or field strength, or something like that, you said?
Yeah, difficult. And again, if you select just to get a wider range of samples, go difficult and very difficult for both of those. So that's another one to add. And yeah, and there's some events where you could add them together, but I always prefer to do it separately, just
Yeah.
to keep it give you more sample size that way.
Yeah, you start to get real small sample, and you get kind of double counting too, because if you go like difficult field strength and very difficult and difficult scoring conditions, it gets a little bit tougher. But you see here, last 2 years, again, even a better sample size, really, other than Zalatoris, who were at 26 rounds. You're getting a pretty good sample size. If you wanted to put a minimum round feature, you can go into this box here and kind of just filter out some of the noise. If you were to get someone to say 4 rounds or something like that, and you didn't want to capture or would throw off kind of the data point, you could put the minimum round feature in, and then it will recalculate the actual rankings here, which I think is useful. So yeah, we'll do strokes gained here total on difficult, very difficult scoring conditions. Interesting to see. Just look at who's putting well in those conditions. Sam Burns, again, your best putters. Keegan being at the top here is pretty interesting. Off the tee, around the green. Again, we can get into some of the stuff that's specific for that, but I think strokes gained total is another thing that's worth popping in there for a little bit. We'll clear these, and what should we do next? Let's see. Do you want to do something around the course length, field strength? What do you think?
Yeah, there's a bunch this week, so definitely course length is long, and so that's one. You could even do if you get, we even have event type where you can go with no cut. Since I mean, there is a cut event, but
Yeah,
this
small
one when
fields.
you have such a small field, so yeah, probably small field would be a better one than no cut. Yeah, so we have a bunker number. It's got the 11th most bunkers here at Bay Hill on Tour, and 8 water danger holes. So this is a course where you could obviously kind of look at both of those. But some other interesting ones, obviously, we have greens with Bermuda, rough Bermuda. One thing I'm using this week for sure is rough penalty being high.
Okay.
So if you go down a little further there when we get to the rough, now it is so 3-inch rough. But so yeah, this is a course that really penalizes you
That's a good
if you're
one.
missing fairways.
Yep.
So yeah, and this is one where you could look at off the tee if you just want to look at how players perform off the tee. You could look in general and look, strokes gained total. So that's a good one. And then yeah, even gaining on approach, kind of like we did with this week, approach and off the tee being difficult. So you could select difficult, very difficult. Even sometimes I'll even go average just to widen it out, just to eliminate those easy courses. So that's another angle you could take as well.
I like that too. You can grab those. Same thing with maybe with the course length, where you mess around with some of these. You just by putting average long and very long, you're just kind of filtering out some of the shorter courses, which I think is a good way to do it. There are a lot this week, I think, that you can go down, and I think it is you can choose to add it to a model, or I think it's you can at least take a look at it to see if there's something there, or it's confirmation bias on someone you're looking at, or anything like that. I think there are a number of ways that Ron just highlighted that we need to be looking at this week. We talked about, we have firm and fast Bermuda greens. So you can, you can literally click Bermuda, fast, firm. How much are you narrowing that down? Messing around. We're talking about Bermuda all over the place. So the rough is Bermuda. Rough length, you want to have long rough. Difficult, rough penalty being high. Again, play around with stuff. See what the filtering is. See what the sample size is. There are a lot of ways to do it. Gaining approach is hard. We talked about scrambling from the rough. That could be a little bit difficult this week too. So yeah, take a look at a bunch of these things. We'll go just with this right now. Rough penalty high, because I think that matters a ton this week. See where we're at maybe from an approach standpoint too. You can see Scotty. Again, I'd like to see, does this actually tell us a little bit based off of previous leaderboards? I think that that's really interesting too. Ball striking here. And these are some familiar names. Just for the sake of it, we'll just, we'll add total just so we can show folks here. Then we'll maybe do something from again, we're in strokes gained, but you can get into all the other views here that you could possibly imagine. If you wanted to look specifically at approach, you want to look specifically at, putting. I want to do something with the floor ceiling here with putting, and we'll go from there if I can get this to stop spinning. It's probably on me and not on the rabbit hole, to be honest. All right. Let's look at fast. I want to look at the floor ceiling stuff, and let's look at the fast and firm Bermuda greens. Let's see what we get here. Let's see if we can get something. Let's see what our sample size is, and we'll see if we can back out here. All right, so we got to go last 2 years. Let's see what we got, maybe 15, 20 rounds. Nope, we're not getting much. So these are basically our Bay Hill rounds.
Yep.
All right, so we'll, yeah. So that's kind of double counting the Bay Hill stuff. So we'll go fast Bermuda greens, last 3 years. This is good. Let's look at the floor ceiling. Let's look who's putting. We'll go strokes gained total at first. All right, Ludwig, pretty small sample, but is gaining strokes total in 9 out of 10 rounds. Rory doing his magic as well. Fitz, Rose, Cantley. It's an interesting one. But let's see who's putting well on these fast Bermuda greens here. All right, Nick Dunlap. So this is another spot where you'd want to get like a minimum round filter in to kind of catch these guys here. Ricky struggling. And this is interesting to see too, the bottom of it. Ricky struggling on fast Bermuda greens. So maybe a spike putting week came in here. Benny Ann, Morikawa, Luke List, Scotty, not surprising, though he's won here, which is interesting to see. But who's doing well? Who can putt on these? Harris English played well in the past, I believe. Top 5 here last year, second maybe. So that's interesting to see. Xander, Tom Kim, Rory, Mackenzie Hughes against some good putters, which I think is interesting here too. So this is a floor ceiling. We talk about this a lot, like spike putting weeks, spiked weeks on approach, ball striking. This actually puts numbers to what that actually means, who actually is showing up and gaining in this instance, more than 0.01 all the way up to 5 strokes in a particular strokes gain category, which I think is really super interesting to see. I think tells a good story. So how are you handling putting splits and stuff like that this week?
Yeah, I'll definitely pretty much weigh Bermuda, because that is one of the more unique surfaces on tour. But yeah, like you said, I'll take a split with fast greens. And I think, being able to incorporate, what we're going to have it in the future where you can actually add, the rankings to, floor ceiling into a model itself. But yeah, I think in general, it really pays to look at, weeks like this, especially where you're looking for the smallest things, that could separate a guy, to see, who may be a great ball striker, maybe a weak putter like a Keegan Bradley, who maybe spikes, on these types of greens. So I think it's very beneficial to dig in and look at that.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely, I think it tells a story here. I think more than some other weeks. How are you going to approach off the tee this week? We have a number of filters. This will be the last one that we do. There's, I think, a lot of different ways to do it this week. Distance does matter. I think good drive percentage matters a little bit. It's like we looked last year, we did have some guys with some length at the top of the board, but I don't think that's always necessarily been the case. How do you want to approach off the tee?
Yeah, for me, this is a total driving week. So this is a unique stat that we have where, it combines equally accuracy and distance off the tee into kind of one stat. And so, with the length of the course, if you also think, Bay Hill is Orlando area. So, they've been getting hit with a lot of the same rain. So conditions going to be soft. Carry distance is probably another good week for that. Now this is a course where, it's kind of a mix. So in the filters, it's not less than driver. It's not driver heavy. It's a pretty decent mix off the tee.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one where I'm going to use a lot of different ones. And even going back to the high rough penalty, I'll have that filter and I'll look specifically off the tee, how players have performed. And just like we said earlier, strokes gained with it difficult to gain off the tee. I'll look at that one as well.
Yeah, let's put this back on and see. Rough penalty high, strokes gained off the tee. We're looking at the last 12 months. Decent size sample, not a lot for Ludwig in particular, but we saw he was at the top at a very large sample of total driving. He remains there with his minimal rounds, but for the sake of it, again, I think everything we've popped so far said Rory at the top.
These are all the best drivers on tour right here.
Yeah. This is again, and I think that matters, right? That's kind of something we're trying to. And you
could even, and this is something I'd like to, when I do it, I'll expand it out to 3 years, sometimes even 5 years, just to get like a long-term view as well. And yeah. I wouldn't expect it to change much, the list, but that just gives you maybe a little more historical perspective as well. So.
Yep, some of the same guys. Scotty bumps up ahead of Rory there, which is interesting too. So, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of those two. It's a decision like yes or no on those guys this week, and see if anyone else in the top of the odds board around the 20 or shorter number drifts a little bit, and see if there's some value there. But otherwise, I get why it's hard for folks to go 7-8 to 1 on an outright. It just is. Those are either expensive tickets, depending on how you do it. It's either an expensive ticket or obviously a shorter win, and a little harder to do. But these guys are going to be coming out at the top of pretty much anything you're doing in here this week. So, yeah, as you can see, if you're seeing this for the first time, there are a lot of ways to slice and dice this data. Again, it is very, very simple to use. You can download any of these things into a CSV as well. Like we said, we gave you a number of ways for you to go and look at some certain things in these filter by condition section that matter this week specifically at Bay Hill. So I'd be careful. Make sure you're looking at your sample sizes. You're not getting too small, and make sure that you're I think telling a better story of how to kind of land and building your betting card, building your player pool for DFS. All those things I think are super duper important this week. We just kind of touched on a few of the views, but you can see in that drop down menu as well, there are a lot of different ways for you to go in and to mess around with stuff. But let's just see what we did here and see what that spit out for us. I think we maybe have 4 things in here. Again, you'll be able to see, go back here. You can go into this section here as well, view expert rankings. You'll be able to see basically anyone here, Ron, myself. We have a couple other contributors that are, in the content space. You'll be able to see their save models. I think Andy Lack probably has his model out there. Andy's pretty early. We don't have Andy yet, but you'll be able to see some stuff. You see Matt Vicenzi as well. I can see some other people in the space and see what they're building, right? What are some stats that maybe you go on and you build one yourself? Maybe you're missing some stuff. You want to see what Ron put in. You want to see what Andy put in. You want to see what Matt put in. Go into their model and look. See who's at the top of their model. See what stats they put in, and you can kind of help structure things a little bit differently. All right. Oh, yeah. No, we put 5 things. Look at us. All right. We'll just run it. You can see you got to give it a name at the top. You can mess around with the weights. We're going to have something here soon that tells you what the weight is to make sure you know that you're at 100 so you don't have to do the math in your head. This will be Bay Hill first look. We'll just leave it as is for now. And again, you can see here, it's really important, I think, to put in a description for yourself when you get into a bunch of these strokes gained total situations. You can hover over this little icon and it'll tell you what it is. Like this one was just strokes gained, rough penalty being high. This one here was very difficult in difficult scoring conditions. And this one was the event season Florida. We will go ahead and save this. You can see you could save all your models. You're not limited on what you could save here, which I think is also pretty useful. You can go back and run some like just evergreen rolling models and spit those out for every tournament here. So Rory comes out at the top, which is not super surprising. Matthew Fitzpatrick, who again is fared fairly well here. I thought would maybe contend a little bit more at Cognizant. Did not. Hovland, as you mentioned, 3rd. Tommy 4th. Scotty down at 5th. Again, you could see the big glaring red 58 in a field of 69 for his putting, which is not going very well. Homa at 6, Xander 7, Lowry 8, Cantley 9, and Keegan 10. You can see, again, some other guys that make a lot of sense in terms of rolling up top 15, top 20 here as well. Anything surprising to you, Ron, that jumped out here with what we did? Again, obviously, we'll get more granular in the stuff that we're doing, but anything here?
I mean, Tommy Fleetwood has a really, really nice course history here. It's just, he's just one of those guys, where it's like top 20, sure, top 10, probably. But yeah, it's just hard. And I think Cameron Young's almost, he's not obviously not a veteran yet, but it's like, will this be the week? I probably not, but I think he's a great fit for the course. I like Fitzpatrick this week. He has a really, really good history here. And another surprising guy is Chris Kirk. He's been playing really well lately. And, you wouldn't think of him as maybe the best fit here. And I know he doesn't pop on this model here, but, his course history here is another one that's really good.
20th in the model, though. So, I mean, he's not that far down. Nice course history set. Again, from a finishing position standpoint, I think that's those are nice bets. I mean, Kirk's already won, though. He's already won a small field, event this season. So it's not like you can't go toe to toe with this field and take it down. He already did surprise us there. So again, another one that kind of jumps out. I like to see these the big red numbers here at the top is Eric Cole off the tee, not great. Morikawa on the greens, not great. That starts to slide as your top. Denny 18 here. It's the off the tee stuff isn't good. Corey Connors putting, not surprising. So some of the outlier statistical things there. So yeah, again, a lot of different ways to go about it. Again, you want to get over to the site, check out Ron's preview. That's going to get you, I think is going to help you understand, make a list of different filters, different conditions, different views you want to go through and kind of, decide, take a look at them and then decide, do you want to put that in your model or not? Because I think there are a lot of specific filtering things this week that I think stand out a little bit. So definitely check that out. Come back on Tuesday for the betting show, myself and Andy Molitor. Wednesday with Ron and Byron Monomaniac for the DFS show. I think they're doing some really good stuff over there as well. So appreciate you hanging out. Hit the subscribe, thumbs up, like, all those things before you take off. And again, jump in the show notes. Take advantage of the Vivid Picks deal. If not, hit us up on Twitter. Again, we are moving prices up here as we approach Augusta. So if you want to get the short prices now, take advantage. They are going away. But again, hit us directly up on BetSports Golf. So we appreciate it. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.